Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from SuiteRecording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. You know, people, if you have a podcast, a video cast, an audio book, hell, even if you need a studio built, SuiteRecording is the place for you. Joe Gangemi, great guy, knows his stuff. He's honest, and he can help you out. So reach out to them. Check out their website at SuiteRecording, SUITE recording.com, or email them at hello@suiterecording.com. Anyway, we have a great show. This is our first all-male panel. I've had all-female, and I'm excited because we have some great professionals. One of our guests is from First National Bank of Elmer. We have Robert Bender. How you doing, Robert?
Hey, good afternoon, Steve. Glad to be here.
And Robert is also a fellow Stockton University alumni. Go Ospreys. We also have from Cogent Connections, Chris Gittings. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great. Glad to be here today.
And from David Thompson Delivers, well, we know what his name is, David Thompson.
Hey, Steve, doing well. Looking forward to this.
So, Robert, tell us a little about what you do and tell us about the Bank of Elmer.
Okay. I'm with the Bank of Elmer. The bank's been around since 1903. We're a community bank servicing all of South Jersey. We pretty much cover from Burlington County down to Cape May County. We have 6 offices in 3 of those counties. My specific role is I'm the chief lending officer for the bank. So I head up all aspects of lending for the bank, all of our loan officers and all lending activity. And I'm also part of the executive management team. So I help with, some of the direction of the bank. So we're excited, banking's, we're seeing some exciting times here with the interest rate environment. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit further, but glad to be here. Thanks, Steve.
And how about you, Chris? Tell us about Cogent Connections.
You bet. So we are a marketing firm that specializes in LinkedIn-based business development, design and branding, newsletters, and live events.
Okay, and how about you, David? Tell us a little about David Thompson Delivers.
I transform company talent development. There's so much influx of Generation Z and millennials into the workforce, and they aren't being trained properly. They aren't being onboarded properly, and therefore companies continue to have these persistent issues of turnover and retention. I train them so they stay.
Okay, so I want to ask you, and we're going to start with you, David. How did you get to the position where you are today? Because in this day and age, a lot of people change roles, change positions, and it's just, that's life. And people after the pandemic said, we're bored, we want to do this, we don't want to live, work 60 years, get a watch or whatever. How did you come about? What's your steps to being where you are now?
I'm a recovering marketing executive. I focused on branding for so long, but after a point, it became, I'm tired of making money for other people. And I was blessed to be able to teach at Temple University as an adjunct, which I still do. And I was given an opportunity to start the country's first course on personal branding. And I really, really enjoy communicating, learning from, and guiding young people as they step into the workforce. And everybody comes in post-COVID with a lot of PTSD, lack of relationship skills, insecurity about their future. And I try and help them develop their brands so that they have the workplace success skills and the confidence in themselves to move ahead. And that's how I got to this point. I did the jump off from personal branding, the natural extension, to helping companies train these people better and motivate them to stay and perform.
How about you, Robert? Because you're in banking, and I meet so many people who have worked for different banks. I've met people I started networking with 5 years ago. Now they've worked for 3 different banks. I know you've been with your bank for a while. How did you end up coming to the bank, and what made you decide to go into that, and why are you there now?
Yeah, well, I think that's a true statement. You don't work for a gold watch anymore. I actually got into banking initially through one of my relatives knew an HR representative for a bank. Was actually First Fidelity at the time, back in the mid-90s. And that's how I got introduced to banking, started in a management training program. And then I've been fortunate to be able to learn and grow. I've worked with several different people that mentored me along the way. And in 2015, I joined our president and CEO, Brian Jones, here at the Bank of Elmer. And, we've done some good things. We've had a little hiccup with COVID, but no, certainly you see people moving around a little bit more. I think that Some people always think the grass is greener on the other side, but a lot of times it's not. So yeah, that's my intro into banking. But I was fortunate to be able to learn and grow and really work closely with some mentors, which enabled definitely open up some doors for me.
How about you, Chris? Because Chris, I always forget that you're a young guy. I mean, it's not like you've been around for a while. And me and Joe were talking earlier. Me and Joe and Jamie, I was like, you have like an old soul. And I always think, I mean, you're in your young 20s, I believe. And
yeah,
how about 20? Yeah. So tell me how you got into where you are now.
I have an interesting story. I'm a product of COVID. So before COVID, I had a regular 9-to-5 job, and I lost my job like a few weeks after COVID hit in March of 2020. The classic time, everyone remembers March of 2020, right? And what happened to me is I had some professional relationships by product of being a professional. And I had 2 businesses that approached me when they found out I didn't have a job, asking for help. And I agreed to help them. And in the process of helping them, I had to set up a business to be able to receive payment, just pure and simple. And these 2 businesses, I was very fortunate for. 1, because they saw that potential in me, and 2, because after we started working together, they started referring me. So I kind of almost looked over my shoulder one day and realized I had a company without ever having made the choice to start a business or the realization of like what I was doing. And that's kind of been, it's kind of a silly thing to say, oh, I started a company by accident, but it really is true. I love my job as a marketer. I meet new people every day. I'm working on new challenges every day. I'm being introduced to new challenges every day, and I'm learning new things every day. Additionally, when you're in marketing and you're just, your challenge, your goal is grow this company, help them reach their goals. Everything's on the table. If you can imagine something, as long as it's going to work for a person, you can pitch them on it. And as long as you can help them get to what they would need to do, you can sell that as a service. So I'm not limited to saying, oh, this is the thing that I do. This is the product I offer. I can help you or not, or you can take this product or not. It's really fun instead to go a bit deeper with each business and collaborate on trying to figure out how to solve problems that are open-ended and nebulous, and to keep pushing yourself to grow as a person. So I feel very lucky.
All right. Now I want to ask you guys. I like to say you guys. Whenever there's a female founder, I say you guys. I feel bad. And I don't mean it like, oh, you guys. It's just a term you grow up with. Hey, you guys. What motivates you? When it comes down to push comes to shove, some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by happiness. You don't think happiness comes, but what motivates you? And we'll start with you, David. What motivates you? Like when you wake up, what motivates you to get your day started?
Meeting people and hearing great stories and helping them craft great stories about themselves. I just really enjoy people, and that's probably drove me a little bit into coaching as a marketing exec. As Chris, just you're constantly meeting people and helping them grow business. I love stories. I love people. I love to help them live a better life.
How about you, Chris? What motivates you?
I sometimes think about like historic, even processes I've been through in my own life with following a journey or watching a documentary and seeing someone else's journey in their life. And I think all too often we spend a lot of our time thinking about an end goal in our journey, or something we want to achieve. And we think about how great we're going to feel when we achieve that thing. But it's become a trope now to realize that when you reach the end of a journey, oftentimes there's a lack of satisfaction that comes with the very narrow, specific thing that you were searching for, that you were fighting for the whole time, right? That thing is great, but it's not as great as you imagined it would be. And it's not the point at the end of the day. So I've kind of taken that realization with me and recognized that the journey is the destination, right? It's important to have destinations, because if you don't have a destination, you don't have a journey, right? And that journey, that destination can be financial security. It can be certain achievements you set for yourself. But those achievements are simply a place to go because you need a place to go in order to travel. But the journey itself is where a lot of that joy happens, right? So the times when you're challenged, sometimes when you have something that goes wrong in your life that brings you down, it colors those moments where you succeed too and makes them more precious. So there's almost this recognition of, what is an adventure? What's the difference? Sometimes people talk about adventures and they're like, oh, let's go on an adventure today. And what they really mean is let's go have fun. Adventure and fun are not the same thing, right? What separates out adventure from having a good time? adventure has real risks of negative outcomes. Something can go wrong in an adventure. Something can go really wrong, right? And there's stakes. And because there are stakes, because you push through real danger, real possibilities of things going sideways, it makes the success you have all the more awesome, right? So I kind of live by that philosophy of trying to live adventurously, trying to be willing to accept, to put myself in situations where there can be negative outcomes, and also to be self-conscious of the importance to be present in the moment and enjoy whatever you're doing in that moment, because that's where your joy is going to end up coming from. Yeah.
Hey, how about you, Robert? What motivates you?
I would have to say that my motivation comes from being challenged, very similar to what Chris had alluded to. Being challenged and being able to figure things out, and then the successes that come from accomplishing and tackling that challenge. Banking, we're faced with a lot of challenges, but to me also work-life balance is very important. Making that time for family, making that time for friends, having that time for yourself is very important. But I would say, and that has helped me through my career of taking a challenge, accepting a challenge, and overcoming all of the pieces to that challenge. So yeah, that's what kind of gets me going.
Okay, as I said, we're all different ages here, and we're all different professions, and AI has been around a lot. Now, I have a lot of friends in Hollywood who are getting hurt by AI. I mean, it's if you don't follow it for actors, it's really screwing them over. It can sit there. It's a big thing for writers, as I always say. AI is not going to write a Tony Soprano character. They're not going to write a Vic Mackey. It's for me. But I'm from the entertainment view. You guys all do different things, so AI may be different for you. I want to know what your takes are on AI, and I want to start with you, Chris, because I know you're in with LinkedIn, and now like when I go on LinkedIn, it says, "Would you like your post AI?" I'm like, "Excuse the language, fuck you. No, I'm going to write it myself. I don't want AI to write my stuff."
Right.
But what's your take on AI? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you indifferent? What's your take?
I'm academically fascinated by it. I'm not a coder, right? But I've been following the development of AI from a layperson's perspective for many years. It's just been a personal passion for me to understand it. There's this wonderful blog called Wait But Why that does 2 really in-depth articles that explain AI, and they're written in 2015, and were really incredible in predicting a lot of what we're navigating right now, which is especially impressive because AI is very hard to predict. I think there's a lack of realization of how AI works. It's really hard to understand, and there's a lack of understanding around how it progresses over time, and how it's learning and how it's growing, and what kinds of paths we might be going down. It's really popular right now, I think, for a lot of folks to jump out and say, "Here's how I predict AI is going to change our world." There's very little reflection being done on how is AI actually helping people today or not helping them. Are these strategies that we're recommending actually working? There's also the sense of AI is so nebulous, and there's so many totally reasonable possibilities for what could happen 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, from 10 years from now, that if you make any prediction with any level of confidence beyond conjecture, you are wrong inherently, even if you're right, because you don't actually have the justification to say that your path for how the world is going to transform is correct. There's not enough information for anyone to make a truly reasonable prediction. And so what people need to get comfortable with is something that we've never been pushed into before, which is this recognition of the uncertainty of possibility, right? To think of things in terms of possibilities rather than predictions, right? Once we begin thinking about how this is a reasonable possibility for what things can look like a year from now, and that's a reasonable possibility, and you maintain an open mindset towards possibilities, you become much better equipped to adjust to changes as they occur, right? So I think that's like a really important thing broadly that people need to begin thinking about and internalizing. As far as AI today, like specifically, how is it helping people today, or how is it not helping? I think there is a fascination when ChatGPT came out of, wow, I didn't realize an AI could be so intelligent, because AI is developing really like this really complex mode of thinking that we didn't really expect would be possible. And not just as far as being able to speak with you, but be able to create art. Most people 5 years ago, if you were to ask them what would be the last thing the AI would take over, they would say the arts, right? And it's been the first thing. We've been totally bamboozled, societally speaking, by how AI has developed, and we couldn't have possibly predicted how things have come. As we've gotten a little bit further, it seems like right now, AI for imagery, AI for design is taking off at an incredible pace. AI is becoming so effective at replacing designers or augmenting designers.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, it is true. Now, how about you, Robert? Because you're in the banking world. I mean, how is AI? Do you worry about it affecting you at all? Because I mean, Chris is, has the very good point about artistry, which we never thought. I saw images of like, the Dalai Lama at a punk rock concert. I mean, just funny stuff. I mean, very creative. But for you, Robert, what's it like in the banking world? Are you worried about it, or does it hurt your business, or how does it interweave with you?
Yeah, so before I get into that, you're making this tough going after Chris because he really understands this. No, in the banking world, so AI is something that I think is continuing to evolve as it relates to our business. I'm fascinated with it because I think it is certainly part of our present and future. But AI in our world, when you're looking at marketing and payment patterns and the ability to kind of know what people are going to do before they do it, and you're able to market to that is huge. Also on our operations side, we have I was just at a conference last week down in Nashville for the American Bankers Association, and one of the things I was doing is going from vendor to vendor, just kind of looking to see what the next solution is going to be. And one of the solutions that's coming out is, you take a tax return, you scan it in, and AI reads everything and basically does all the work. So it pulls everything out of the tax return from every schedule, from every line item, and puts it into your model for cash flows on the lending side. So how this all evolves is amazing, and it's really prevalent more with the larger banks because they have infrastructure and they have the ability, the ability to really invest in this a lot more than a smaller bank would. But it's always trickles down. So we're paying real close attention to it. Since we are a smaller bank, we do rely on third-party solutions. A lot of cloud web-based solutions that we're using now. But that just last week I was having this conversation, and these guys are really developing some fascinating products. So I am interested in it, fascinated by it, and really curious to see where it evolves to.
How about you, David?
It's a crazy, I echo both of what these guys said. It's a crazy development that's come on like gangbusters in the last year in the form of ChatGPT and some of the other task-based technologies that you can do. I've sat out for a while. I don't use really any AI or any of the things that it enables. But I've been listening. In particular, I follow Dr. David Sinclair, the Harvard medical scientist who's worked on longevity, healthy aging and longevity, and he talks about how they use it in the science world in the development of epigenetics, and researching things that can affect how we age. And they say they feed materials and studies into AI technologies and find out answers that it might take 3-5 years to find out. So I'm intrigued by it. I am not going to adopt it right now into my world because I want to see what happens. The implications are so strong and so widespread for it that good and bad. So I'm very intrigued. I want to see what happens. I won't be an early adopter.
Okay. Now, we talk about changing times, and mental health has come up a lot. And I come from a generation where mental health, if you had a shitty day at work or you're bummed, your friends would go, knock it off. Come out. We'll buy you a drink. Just walk it off. And it's changed now. I want to ask each of you, because I said we're at different ages and different paces of our lives. How do you deal with when you have a bad day. Like if I wake up and I feel crappy, or if I have a bad day, my outlet is music. Okay, it used to be more. I used to go I have a few cocktails, and I'm like, and you wake up feeling like shit. You feel that day, you feel awful. So it's music is my thing. But how do you deal with to keep yourself mentally healthy when you have a bad day? Because I think everybody deals with depression, and if you say you don't, you're lying, because we've all gone through it. But Robert, how do you do it? Because you're a family man, so it has to be different how you deal with depression or having a bad day, coming up from work after a tough day. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I'll give you two-pronged approach here. So I generally do fall back on music. If I wake up in a bad mood, I'll put on the right music. And when I get to the office, you can tell what kind of music I was listening to most of the time, because sometimes it has a little more energy than others. And the same thing on the way home. But I think also one of the things, once in a while, you're linked with me on LinkedIn. I'll put out a quote that I kind of can relate to, and it generally may have a bearing on what my mood is that day, or so I may look up a quote to kind of help myself through, but then I share it with others to help them as well. So I would say music first, but I generally will look to quotes, and sometimes I'll flip on a podcast just to kind of something inspirational, and that can kind of get me through the day as well, and take that that mood and change it around for the better.
How about you, David?
There's so many great tools out there for people who deal with a bad day or a depression. I listen to a lot of content. I'll throw on either headphones to listen to music. I'll get out in nature and get away from technology and people. I'll even go to the gym if I want to, all the time listening to music or podcasts about positivity and things that can change our mindset. At the end of the day, though, what really gets me out of the bad of a bad day is in summer, I go swimming. I float, I swim. The weightlessness and the ability almost to meditate and be in a submersion tank makes me feel great. And when I come out of a pool or I come out of the ocean, I have washed away any of the issues that I had before.
How about you, Chris?
That's great. Steve, I don't know how you keep asking questions on topics that are like my favorite topics. Of all the things you could pick to talk about, because my background as a student before I went into marketing was actually psychology. I used to work with kids with ADHD. And I'm fascinated by human behavior and how we think and how we work. For me personally, I've gotten into meditation. Essentially, there are things in your mind and your body that you have voluntary control over, and things you don't really have voluntary control over. Like blinking is a common one. When you don't think about blinking, it's involuntary, but the moment you do, it becomes voluntary. So there are some things that you can actually gain voluntary control over that otherwise are involuntary, like blinking, for example. And your emotional state is something that you can actually train yourself to begin to control. When people think about the experience of pain, all of the ways you respond to pain, like let's say you burn yourself, what do? You yell, you might bite your tongue, you might stamp the ground, you might try singing to yourself or turning away from the pain. All these natural reactions are about avoidance, right? When you get to more advanced practice around managing pain, that can be emotional pain, it can be physical pain, it can be anything. Turning towards your pain and hugging it, essentially allowing it to dissolve rather than pushing it away, can be a really effective approach. Now, it's easier said than done, but with practice, it's kind of like a muscle. You can get better and better at managing that. Besides that, I like sleeping. If I'm really feeling horrible, take a nap, good to go.
Naps are good. Naps are always good. So, you're all good at what you do. That's a given. You wouldn't be on the show if you're some schlup. I'll be honest, I'm not bringing in people who don't fascinate me, and I respect them. You're all good at what you do, but what do you think you can do better when it comes to your job? What do you think, what is something that you say, I have to strive to do this? And we'll start with you, Chris. What can you do better than what you're doing now? And how do you plan to get there?
I like when you ask other people first, 'cause I'm writing down my thoughts as they're talking, and that's how I'm coming up with interesting answers, right? But for me, time management's a major issue. I spend 10 to 12 hours a day in front of my desk, and it's there's a certain point in your workday where the more hours you spend, the less productive you become. And I'm still fighting how to get over that and how to get to a point where I'm in charge of my work rather than my work being in charge of me. At all times, I feel this pressure because I owe somebody something, usually multiple people. So keeping track of the people I owe things to and staying on top of all of that, it's not something I've gotten out from in the last 3 years. Every day I set myself a list of things I want to accomplish that day. And there hasn't been a single day in the last 3 years I've gotten through my list for that day, even though it's a list that I feel is possible to achieve in that day. And it's blown my mind, and I'm still struggling with it.
How about you? How about you, David?
I agree wholeheartedly with what Chris said. Time management. The second aspect is always learning. I will only be as good as what I continue to learn. So when I am advising and working with people on personal branding or on helping to shape a better culture, there are so many people out there with such outstanding studies and work that they're doing that if I'm not learning about that and incorporating that into what I do, I feel like I'm not serving my clients as well as I could.
And you, Robert?
So for me, I think self-reflection is very important. I was working with one of my mentors recently, and his recommendation was to put together, an executive leadership plan for yourself. And part of that was a SWOT analysis, which I think is important. But one of those components is, my ability to delegate more. You can't take it all yourself. You have to have your team working with you. One of my big concepts is empathy. When I first got into banking, the first gentleman that I worked for really taught me about empathy, and it's stuck with me for the last 26, 27 years. He had these little note cards, and really it was probably something he got from a leadership class. Now, this is probably back in the 90s, 80s, maybe even the 70s. But it's stuck with me to this day. Delegate, but also put yourself in your subordinate's shoes. But it all starts with self-realization of where are you, where do you want to go, where can you go, and how do you get there? And delegation is one of the big things that I try to work on. And but it's more than delegation. I mentioned empathy, but it's also preparing the people that you're delegating to for their success as well.
Now, I've met all you through networking. I know, Chris, you throw some good networking events, and we were just talking about the bankroll, which also that place just closed. That's what happens when you run a shitty company and you throw when Steven Starr walks away. Because you go, okay, well, you're in Philadelphia. Steven Starr will bring in people, but we're not going to talk about bankroll. But let's no. I got to ask you, networking. We all network. Networking is very important. Okay, and we all run into people, and we can say there's people we like. The people that we like are the people that connect and help each other and are good. What are some examples of people you don't like? Like, I don't like, and I'm going to go into this later when we get into LinkedIn, but I don't like people who are just full of shit. And I think because I did comedy for so long, comics, we have a certain power that we can read when someone is just full of crap. I can hear someone from a distance from the room, and I go, this person, they're swarmy or they're whatever. But who are some people that you don't mention names, we don't, but and I can mention some names, but I won't. But who are some people that the type of person that you don't like to network that bother you? And we'll start with you, David. Who are some people the kinds of people that just you go, oh man, just get away from me?
We talk about this in class all the time, and I put up studies on, here are the characteristics of people with strong personal brands. Here are the characteristics of people with weak personal brands. So the first example is people who are takers, people who only are into themselves. You've met them many times. You say, how are you doing? And 10 minutes later, they're still talking about their lives. They're still talking about themselves, and they haven't turned around and say, how are you doing? Or what's happening in your world? And the second aspect is when they're addicted to their phones. Their phone's buzzing off here in a networking opportunity, and whether it's online or in person, and their phone is buzzing, and they have to look at it. They cannot give their full attention to the person in front of them and build a relationship. So the people that really annoy me are ones that do not have empathy, Robert, and that do not listen, and that are more preoccupied with who they are than getting to know you as a person.
How about you, Robert?
Well, I'm a banker, so everything we do is about relationships. So I tell my people all the time, when you're going to a networking event, you're going there to form relationships. So for me, the people that are there just to get business, you don't go to those events just to get business. You go there to form relationships, and then business to me is the byproduct after the fact. Once you establish yourself with somebody, and David had mentioned giving and taking. I always go to networking events or opportunities with the intent that I want to give before I get. I think that's important. So if I have a meeting with somebody, and generally what I'll do is if I go to a networking event, I'll meet the people that I think that I will work with, and then I'll send them a follow-up, and I'll schedule a one-on-one with them. And the one-on-one is where you're going to really establish a rapport with somebody. And when I do that one-on-one, I always have in the back of my mind, well, how can I help this person? So I want to help them first before I expect them to, even consider helping me. So I always want to be the first person offering. So it is a give and take, but you want to be the giver, not the taker, initially. So for me, going to those events, and we're a bank, we go to a lot of like Chamber of Commerce type events, and it's great networking, but it should be about forming relationships with folks, and then if it evolves into business, it does. But so for me, it's the if people are there just looking for a quick sale, that's not me. I'm more about the long-term relationship.
How about you, Chris? Because your events are huge, and there's going to be some people you just don't like. It's easy as that. It's like anything. We can't like everybody. But what are some types of people that you don't like when you're networking?
You bet. One thing I found really funny networking is sometimes I work with people and they're like, oh, like I want to connect with somebody, or I mentioned someone who I think they might want to know, and they're like, I don't like that person, right? And it's gotten to a point where I found a circle of this person doesn't like that person, doesn't like that person, doesn't like that person, and a big circle all the way around, like a very indirect circle. I'm like, this is kind of comical, because ultimately every single reason that each person didn't like the other person was totally valid. And yet I still liked each of those people. And I'm like, guys, like I understand that this person has a quirk, or this person has a thing you need to navigate when building a relationship with them, but there's still value there. That being said, there have been maybe 3 times in my professional career where I've had really negative experiences with a person, so far at this job. All 3 of those times I was dealing with powerful alpha people who kind of just scared me. They're looking for a fight or to put somebody down. And I'm a bit of a passive, almost, I present as a very innocent person. And I was intimidated and also vulnerable. And so I was hurt by those few experiences where I was just kind of being chill and friendly and not realizing where the other person's headspace was when they went in. When it comes to events specifically, I am trying to make sure that everyone at my event is having a good time, right? Whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event. And that means that folks who are likely to make other people not have a good time, folks who are likely to brush with each other, those are folks I need to be careful about including. So there's definitely a component there of, hey, if, I know this person has a situation, like half people they meet like them and the other half don't, I should be careful about where I include them or how they're supervised to ensure that I don't create negative experiences for more people, right? Because things have multiplicative effects.
Okay. Now, it's funny, Robert, you mentioned something about the one-on-one. And last week I went on a little tangent about etiquette. And I want to talk about one-on-one because when people approach you to meet you, now I've said this many times. I'm a performer, so I'm insecure and I'm narcissistic. That's just the way we are. You know, we. But I had someone reach out to me, and this is at the end of September, and they said, "Oh, I'd love to meet you for like coffee or lunch. Are you free mid-November?" And I responded, "No." I said, "I don't schedule 2 weeks beyond, because I think if you're that busy, you know, if you can't meet me, but what is your time frame? Like, what do you think is an allowable time? If I was to reach out to you, David, and say, hey, David, I really like to meet you for a one-on-one. And I said, I'll meet you in 2024. You'd be like, get out of here. But what do you think is a respectable and yet understandable time that when you set an issue with someone that you can say this far? I want to hear each of your answers. We'll start with you, David.
No more than 3 weeks.
Okay.
And understanding that people get busy, people are on vacation, and we just have conflicting schedules. But if you cannot squeeze in 30 minutes for either in person or a valued Zoom, then I fully agree with you. Then why are you even reaching out to me?
How about you, Chris?
People are stubborn, and they all have their own ways of living. And one thing I kind of realize is the reason why people are the way they are is because whatever system they have, it works for them, right? And who am I to kind of step in and be like, oh, well, this is my system, then my system's incompatible. So when people are really stubborn, everyone's really stubborn, something's got to give. And I usually find that's me. And because I'm a marketing vendor, it's kind of my job to fill the gaps, right? So I've kind of become a very flexible person. I think the only time where I've had an issue is when someone else demands inflexibility from me because I'm so flexible. They're like, you need to have everything planned perfectly, where things need to be structured in a really tight and provided way. I'm not really in a position to deliver the kind of structure to others that they want if they are a very type A person.
Okay.
So I'm late sometimes for things.
Okay.
And
how
I'm
about
as consistent as others, and I just have to deal with that because I'm always just trying to survive.
okay? How about you, Robert?
I'm generally a 2 to 3 week type person, because, you know, kind of adding to what David had said, if somebody can't meet with you within 2 to 3 weeks, are they really that busy, or do they really want to meet with you? You know, that's the real question. You know, everybody's got spare time. I meet people at 7 in the morning, 7 at night. You know, so you can't tell me anybody's too busy to schedule something within a 2 to 3 week period. It doesn't have that much a time for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever the case may be. So I generally will question, you know, are they really that busy, or do they really want to meet with me if it gets outside of that time frame?
Okay, good. Now I don't feel like a dick that I said 2 weeks. So thank you. You guys made me. That question was for me. Okay, now I want to talk about LinkedIn, and it's going to be funny because, Chris, you deal with LinkedIn, and I like LinkedIn. I truly like LinkedIn, but there are certain things that irritate me about LinkedIn, and I talk about it every week. And one thing that irritates me is the people that are just phonies on LinkedIn. Like, they're sitting there and they're acting like they're very successful when you know they aren't. And the thing is, when someone isn't successful, if they ask for help, people are, what I've learned is, especially in the South Jersey area and the Philly area, people are very happy to help you. People are ready to say, okay, we'll talk to this person. But some people, they're so full of shit, and they paint this picture on LinkedIn, and maybe called faking it till they make it. But that's one thing that you sit there. I had someone saying they had a microphone when I was in one-on-one, and someone said, why is that microphone? And they said, oh, well, I'm doing 3 podcasts today, and I did 10 podcasts. What podcasts are you doing? Like, you know, why would you tell people that? Like, you're faking it. But what is something, and we're going to get to you last, Chris, because you're the LinkedIn guy, and I don't want you to shit where you eat. But what is something that just bothers you with LinkedIn? And we'll start with you, Robert.
Well, I would say first that LinkedIn is a huge tool. I think when used properly, it's a great way to connect with folks. A great way to share information. You know, for me, I only post things on LinkedIn that I believe in, relate to, and you see a lot of people like LinkedIn kind of goes up and down. Like some people will be putting a lot of personal things on there. There's other social media outlets for that, but I think it's the same on no matter what outlet you're talking about. For me, I'm a pretty transparent type person. You kind of get what you see. For me, I'm very, I use LinkedIn, I think, for what it's used for. I do connect with folks for opportunities on there. I don't overpost things that I don't believe in or that don't belong on there. So for me, it's just keeping it business related and relevant.
Well, David, what bothers you about LinkedIn?
The Facebookization of LinkedIn. I like when people share some things that are related to who they are at their core, their values. There's some travel or some interpretation of an experience that they have that they want to share about themselves. But I don't want to see somebody take a video, turn around and cry on camera and share their sob story so they can get all these people commenting and saying, no, you're great, fantastic, just reach out to me, I'm going to help you. So I think there's too much oversharing on LinkedIn that they should keep on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok and leave it to be more of a professional organization or professional social outlet.
How about you, Chris?
Steve, I really am just so blown away that you're all my favorite topics are on this podcast. My favorite podcast now. I'm going to call it LinkedIn the company. LinkedIn the company, calling you out today. So many things I'm frustrated with the company over. I think their reps are not very intelligent. I spent a lot of time with a few of them earlier this week trying to learn more about the more advanced enterprise versions of Sales Navigator because there's multiple tiers. Just as an example of LinkedIn's kind of silliness, they have Sales Navigator Core, which is the base version, Sales Navigator Advanced, which is a feature version with some extra features around CRM integration. Then they have LinkedIn Sales Navigator Enterprise Advanced and Sales Navigator Enterprise Advanced Plus. What are you doing, LinkedIn? That's a crazy terminology. You have two different Sales Navigator Advanced that have no naming difference. That are totally different solutions, right? Just as one example of how they're doing things that really don't add up. They have multiple bugs that have persisted for years that are still present on the platform that we probably don't have time to get into that I would love to call LinkedIn for. LinkedIn had so much potential to serve as its own integrated CRM, where you manage your contacts and your relationships and your follow-ups within Sales Navigator. LinkedIn could have charged more money to their users and added a whole bunch more functionality, and they've never bothered to do so. And over the years, the system's hardly changed at all. And they're owned by Microsoft, and they have all this money, they have all these employees, and they're doing nothing. Twitter, for the last 8 years before Elon bought it, didn't change. There were no new features or tools being implemented whatsoever. And the company wasn't making money. They were losing money every single quarter. Elon takes over. There's all kinds of controversy around it, but there's no denying that there are new features being added all the time. What was with the old Twitter culture that prevented them from getting anything done? Whatever that culture was in old Twitter, that persists in LinkedIn today. And if LinkedIn doesn't get its act together, someone's going to eat their lunch. So they need to shape up.
Okay. Now, here a quick question. This is yes or no answer. Politics and religion on LinkedIn. Robert?
No.
Chris?
Maybe.
Okay. David?
On occasions.
Okay. Now, here's a question I started asking a few weeks ago because I don't read business books. I never have, but a lot of people do. And I've gotten some really good book suggestions here, and haven't bought any of them, haven't read any of them, because they just don't interest me. I lose my thought, and I know I can listen to them on Audible, but I don't. But what's a book that you've read recently or have read in the past that you've really taken to heart? Some people have, they said, I read this book and oh my God. I hate when people go, oh, it changed my life. Well, no book's going to change your life. A heart surgeon can change your life. A book can. A book can help you around down the path. But what's a book that has really meant a lot to you? Either you're reading it now or in the past. And we'll start with you, Robert.
a book that I read recently. It's called Radical Candor, and it's about how you deal with your employees in a caring and direct way, but challenge them at the same time. So that's one that you know, I have a number of employees, and it enables you to, you know, don't sugarcoat things, don't be transparent, you know, don't add too much fluff, just, you know, react in a way that's caring to your employees. Again, goes back to empathy. Be direct, don't sugarcoat it, and but at the same time you have to challenge employees. So this, it's called Radical Candor. It was one of my, I don't read a lot of books, but it was one that I read recently that was pretty good to me.
How about you, Chris?
Well, I always have this one book in arm's reach, The 2-Hour Cocktail Party by Nick Gray. And I recommend this to people all the time. Everyone has their one book, right? So that's my one book. I like it because I know the illustrator of the book. She did some really wonderful, cute illustrations. And it's a short read, it's like an hour, hour and a half. And it's just a very simple breakdown of how to be a good host of a social mixer. And it's what inspired what I'm doing, you know, with all these events. Two of my favorite things about the book are that it does a great job disarming people when you're like, oh, I don't want to host because it's expensive, because they don't have a place to host, because people may not show up, because people may not have a good time, right? It dismantles every one of those arguments to a point where you're almost forced to say, well, if that's the reason you weren't hosting, you need to now, because this argument's been fully dismantled. The second thing I love about it is the author of the book, Nick Gray, comes at hosting these social mixers with a perspective that's really weird and unusual. And most advice you're going to get online is similar to itself. Because he comes out of left field, and I don't always agree with all of his ideas, it really pushes your thinking outside of the box, which is helpful as far as helping you grow as an organizer. So no matter who you are, even if you're an experienced organizer, this book's going to add value to you.
And I'll say, I went to an event at Chris's house, and he had very good soda and good pizza. And I think there was cupcakes. I'll tell you, and I ate more pizza than I should have, but it was really good pizza. How about you, David? You seem like a really person who reads a lot.
I used to read a lot of books, but now I find my content usually comes now from YouTube videos and a lot of podcasts. So I haven't read as much as I'd like to, and I wish I could run downstairs and grab 2 books. But one is called Blendification, and it is a business strategy book. And I really cannot give you any more than that, other than to say I'm about a third of the way through, but it's already rethinking business strategies for me and how I approach doing what I do, as well as for a marketing client that I still have. So it's called Blendification. I cannot remember the author. I'm sorry, but that's the book I'm currently absorbed in.
Okay. Now I have one final question, and I always ask this because I think it's important. Someone, you know, graduates high school, graduates college, graduates trade school, whatever they're doing. And as my mom would say, they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And they're going out and they want to make ways into the world. They want to sit there and get their shit together and get things started. And they come to you for advice. And they say to you, you know, do you have any secrets or anything that I should do to help me? And I want to start with you, Robert, because you have 4 children. So for you, I'm sure they come to you and say, Dad, you know, do you have any advice about what I should do? Because they're your kids. But what is something that you would tell someone who's not your kids that came up to you and said, hey, give me some advice how I can get on the right track and how I can really start building myself in a professional world? What would you say, Robert?
Yeah, so I think for me it would be, you're going to have to work hard, and it's going to take time. You're not, you know, we have some internships here, and I do some mentorship opportunities with younger people to try to help them. And you know, I always say, nobody goes to college and says they want to be a community banker. But then when I sit with them and explain what it actually entails, they're like, wow, that's a, and I explain the career path. They actually like, wow, that's really interesting, because there's so many different directions you can go. and it is a huge opportunity, and you know, it's been great to me. So, but I think that you know, and this is I guess kind of a generational type question, but you know, for me, it's you're going to have to work hard. It's going to take some time. You're not going to come out of school and you know, be making, you know, a couple $100,000 a year. You know, for me, I guess I'm a little old school and traditional in that you have to pay your dues a little bit, and as you're doing that, you're learning. You know, and experience, you can't teach experience. It just comes with time. You have to teach it, obviously, but it comes in time. You know, especially like in my world, in the lending world, you can have the best credit classes to teach you credit as you want, but you have to be out meeting with all these different business owners because they all give you something different, and every deal is different. It's structured differently. It's priced differently. Every business is different. Industries are different. Everybody's needs are different. You have some clients that are very good credit, some are bad credit, you know, some go bad. So for me, it's time is a huge factor, and you just got to put the time in.
How about you, Chris?
So I actually talk to a lot of other young professionals. Whenever I meet, you know, most of the folks I work with professionally are my parents' age, and most of their kids are my age. And they're like, "Oh, talk to my child and about being a professional, or being an entrepreneur, or getting a job, or anything." I tell every young professional I meet, they have a secret superpower, which is that because they're a student or a young professional, they can reach out to almost anybody, requesting advice and assistance, but really just advice and perspective on whatever industry they want to get into or anything they want to learn. And that person is going to take a half hour out of their day to help them. So long as they come to that call prepared with questions and their research done. And that's not to say, if you ask one person, like, "Hey, can you take 30 minutes with me to answer some questions?" They may say no. But if you ask 100 people, you're going to have 10 for sure that say yes. And there's a great self-selection bias where the folks who agree to spend time with you are the kind of folks who are going to have great conversations with, who you're going to get a lot from. And when you meet these folks, not only are you going to get great advice, but you're going to gain new advocates who are well connected in their fields. And if you do this a few times with a few key people, you're going to get well connected enough that you're going to just get a job through the back channels, just done, right? Every young professional has access to this, and they do not know it, and nobody is telling them that they have, again, the secret superpower that doesn't last forever. I'm exiting that secret superpower now, right? In the next year or two, I won't be able to get away with that kind of thing anymore. But you've got to totally lean in, reach out to professionals. LinkedIn's a great way to do it, and essentially request their time and help, because people want to help you. And you have to remember that you're almost doing these folks a favor too, because there is nothing more fulfilling than a professional in the middle of their career being able to help the next generation of leaders. And they all really want to do that. So give them an opportunity to be a part of that with you and to be part of your journey with you, because it's a lot of fun for them. Don't deny them the fun that they're going to have spending time with you.
That's awesome. And how about you, David? Because you talk to all these people.
Create a memorable experience. What is the experience of you? What is the experience of you, Steve, Robert, Chris? I could write down my perceptions of you guys, and they're all strong. But so many people enter the work world and they don't know who they want to be. They're faking it in college. They don't know who they're growing up. So what are the perceptions? Start with a process. What are the perceptions that you want to be known for by others? What is the behavior? And what is the behaviors that you have to adopt so people see you like you want to be seen? So it's a process, discovering your brand, your values, your unique strengths, and creating an experience of you that is memorable on all fronts. That's how you're going. Chris just said it perfectly. When you go and network in the professional world, people will recognize you as being genuine and interesting and caring and driven, and they will go to the end of the world to help you. But if you don't take the time to understand who you are, the perceptions that you want to create, and the experience of you that is that is memorable, not forgettable, then you're stacking the odds against yourself. So it's about creating a memorable experience.
That was awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show today. How can people get in touch with you, reach out to you? Robert, how can people get in touch with you?
rbender@elmerbank.com is my email address, or 856-358-7000.
Okay. Chris.
Christopher Gittings at Cogent Connections on LinkedIn. That's the best way. Connect with me on there.
And David.
David Thompson delivers.com. You can contact me through that or through LinkedIn by my name, although there's a few David Thompsons out there.
So people, reach out to them. You can email me at thecooptank@yahoo.com. If you want to be a sponsor for the show, hit me up. You know, the people who come on the show are very top professionals, and the people who watch the show are professionals who are very successful too. They enjoy the content. So if you want to get your brand out there, hit me up at thecooptank@yahoo.com. Go to YouTube. The Coop Tank. Look it up, watch past episodes, rate them. And I also want to thank Joe Gangemi from SuiteRecording. Reach out to Joe. He knows what's going on. He'll hook you up. If you have a podcast, you want to come to the studio, it's really fun. So if you're listening to The Coop Tank, I'm Steve Cooper. I'll talk to you next week, and have a great weekend. Go Phillies.